I think it is changing. It's going fast now. It's expanding. It's going down market. We're giving services that only big companies could have before, which is super exciting. And so, Rod used to use the term we're at the end of the beginning. I do think we're at the end of the beginning in the US. I mean, we're still not that far. I think it's like only 20% or around that number of small businesses are using cloud accounting as a GL, which, blows your mind when you consider the Southern Hemisphere is over 50%. So we're right at the start. There's so much innovation too happening all over the workflows when you look at all the cloud apps that small businesses can now access.
Today is Monday, July 19th. This is the Cloud Accounting Podcast. I'm Blake Oliver.
And I'm David Leary.
And I'm Ben Richmond.
Ben, we have Ben Richmond here. Ben Richmond is the country manager for the US market.
For Xero.
I almost forgot the company. The last time we had you on, we were actually at Xerocon.
That's right, in San Diego. It seems like a very long time ago now.
And now we're sitting down face-to-face again at the Accounting Salon 2021. What's happened in Xero during this time? It's like we went to a conference and then the world stopped and now we came back out.
A lot's happened, so I had to write a list. But this is like you guys, this is our first trip back out in the field, visiting people. But no, lots of products come out. I know you guys have spoken a lot about that on the show. Just recently, we launched our new app analytics tool, which is an AI-driven tool that helps businesses get a view of their 30, 60, 90-day cash flow, where the business is going to be at. But as we've talked about, we're really focusing on getting a lot of the US specifics growing faster in the product. So lots of stuff's gone into our reporting product, which has been great, and lots of bank feeds as well. So I think since we last spoke, we've got Chase, Bank of America, and Citi, all as direct connections. But more in sort of what have we been up to? We've grown. So we've had, it's fun fact, about a third of our workforce in North America hasn't been into one of our offices or met another Xero. So we're super excited as we start to go back into offices safely to start to meet a lot of the Xeros that have joined, getting back out safely when our customers are ready to meet them as well. But it's been a pretty humbling experience as well. I mean, there were lots of great things we learned, but lots of tough times when you thought about the start of the pandemic and everything that was going on at the time. The first, after our party in San Diego at Xerocon, the big thing we focused on really when the pandemic hit was let's just look after our customers. And so I remember, we actually took on our sales side, we took commission off all our salespeople and said, in the first 90 days, we just want to check in with partners. How are they doing? This is the never-ending tax season. Many are still on their journey to being in the cloud and aren't set up to operate well remotely. And so we said, look, even if you just need to help the partner learn how to use Slack or learn how to use Zoom, because a big chunk of the market hadn't. And so we just really focused on checking in and supporting the partners and same thing with our people. It was, I think everyone's experienced the fatigue of, virtual happy hours, virtual conferences. It got pretty tough there for a while. So focused on getting behind our people, making sure we're doing the right things in the communities that we're supporting. But probably the big one is, the US is now our top priority for Xero globally. And so, it's been really exciting to see our product teams mobilizing around the US market. We've got lots of stuff that's come out, lots of great stuff that's going to be coming. And that's a mixture of everything, the innovation coming in the product, but also making sure we get the basics right. Because, the basics are super important to make sure that everything's humming so you can get true access to that innovation. So lots of stuff. Personally, I used the pandemic as a way to get healthy. So I used the not being on an airplane all the time to get out, get fit, hike in Colorado, which was great, and spend a lot of time getting to know the state that I've been living in for 4 years now. Lots of good stuff, lots of tough stuff, but I think we've all been through the same challenge. How have you guys been?
We still record the podcast every week.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, the world never changed for Blake and myself.
Yeah.
So I moved from LA to Arizona. So now David and I are in the same state, although different cities. I too have been getting out a bit more. It's been interesting, like traveling again after all this. I mean, the planes are full, right?
Yep, that they are.
But yeah, no, it's I guess there are silver linings for a lot of folks, and for me it was discovering that I don't need to travel and be constantly moving around to get stuff done and to be happy too, right? Like I think a lot of us discovered things at home. How about you, David?
I think I learned about supply chain management mostly than anything. I took on a big remodeling job and I got to really see the impact of shortages of lumber and chemicals that make paint and labor and all these pains that, accountants and bookkeepers are having, just staffing, getting staff. And that's a big topic here at the accounting salon. Like I'm seeing it across every business. Like nobody can hire people.
Yeah. So Ben, you said that a third of Xeros in the U.S. have not been to the office.
Correct.
So you've continued to grow.
We did the usual thing. Like at the start, we paused and checked in with customers and people. But then after that, we saw growth coming through. I think people needed to get into the cloud, get remote setups working, so that they could grow. And so we turned on the hiring again and started growing the business. And then got to a point where now, we've got all these Xeros that are going to be over the next. We're not going to require anyone to come back in the office in 2021 up here in North America. But we know we've got people that want to, for their mental health or the extroverts like me that want to get back into an office safely. So we're going to open up, and there'll be lots of Xeros that we actually haven't met. People we've been working with now for 16 months, and I couldn't tell you how tall they are or any fun facts.
So are you going to continue to recruit in the Denver area, San Francisco area, or is it open to anyone across the U.S.? That's been a thing that a lot of accounting firms have discovered, is they can work with staff anywhere.
Yeah, I think it's a similar challenge. I saw a stat this week while I was traveling. So 95% of people are potentially thinking about a career change, which is the most dramatic one I've seen so far. But it is happening. There's lots of growth, lots of new startups, and so people are looking for talent. Talent's a hot commodity. And so you got to look after your people. You got to reconnect them with your purpose, because it's a very hot job market right now, and so we're feeling the same challenges and pain. But I will say, we've learned a lot through the pandemic in regards to where we want to hire people, remote work. We're a technology first company anyway, but we've started hiring in much more places than we were. So we obviously would love people to be in the hubs that we operate. But, like for instance, we had Letitia Carter join us recently, came across to run our head of partner services, and she's based out of Atlanta. And we've everything from leader roles to certain frontline roles we're allowing to be in the States where it makes sense. I think it's what people are looking for. And if you, in this environment that we're in, we're seeing some examples of companies that are really going out trying to force people back into the office, and
accounting firms.
Yeah. And you will risk churning your people. There's lots of opportunities out there, and I think we have learned that we can do this. And so I don't think we're going back to the old way of doing. How do you go back to a hybrid way? And I reflect. I'm originally from New Zealand, and we watched them go into lockdown and sort of eradicate the virus, and then go back. And it was sort of kind of a shame because we watched them go back to a 2019. Essentially, New Zealand did 2019 and 2020. Whereas up here, we've been in this for a long time. We've developed new habits. I think people are desperate to get back face to face. People are desperate to spend time with each other and with customers. But I don't think we're going back to that. You must be in the office and in these certain hubs. And that excites me. I think it excites me from a diversity and inclusion is really important for us at Xero by opening up where we hire. Helps us do a much better job at, making sure that our teams look like the communities that they serve. And in a talent shortage, you've got to go everywhere. And it's the same thing if you're an accounting firm that's just trying to hire people in your town. That's going to be incredibly hard right now. Or if you're on the right platforms and you're taking this modern approach to hiring, then you can access talent all over the country. I think it's exciting. But I know a lot of people are going to learn the hard way because they're going to try and force people back. And that might backfire. So
that's one of the changes that the pandemic has wrought upon the accounting profession, and in particular, CAS practices or outsourced accounting practices. I know that you're talking, the Xero folks, you and the Xero folks are talking to firms all the time. So what other impacts have there been from the pandemic on the profession that you've seen?
Yeah, I think burnout is the same thing that most professions are seeing at the moment. But we saw 2 extended tax seasons the never-ending tax season. It was kind of interesting. I think during the first wave of the pandemic, we saw our partners sort of go into survival mode. They had to figure out how to finish a tax season while also figuring out how to go to remote. And I think we focused on doing the easy stuff first, right? So for those firms that hadn't got, we're at the accounting salon. This is the leaders of the industry. This is sort of further down in the mass market where they're on the journey still. And for the firms that have made this change historically, they know it's not an overnight flick of the switch. And so for many of those firms, they had to start the process while also trying to figure out how to do this tax return season. And so many of them got the easy stuff sort of first, the communication tools, video conferencing. A lot of firms didn't even have laptops for people to work from home. So they had to sort of work on the basics. I think what we're seeing now is they're now going, right, we now need to get the hard stuff done. Is our practice fully set up to run remotely, to deliver services to clients remotely, interact with our clients remotely? And so I think we're seeing an acceleration of that. I think the other thing we learned, we saw it in research data before the pandemic that, we asked small businesses who should give you these type of services, helping you understand where to grow your margins on the product that you might be selling. Where are you going for that now? What was scary was the common answer was, it might be a friend. Sometimes I ask my customers.
TikTok.
Yeah. Who do you think should be that person? And the lion's share of the small businesses said, something my accountant or bookkeeper could potentially do. You interview the other side of the flywheel and they would say, well, we could provide those services, but do small businesses really want that from us? So we've got this marriage we're trying to create that I think the pandemic just put a massive adrenaline shot in. And what I mean by that is all of a sudden the PPP came out, it was rushed out, which we had to do because we had to get that out fast. And then the rules sort of rolled out and refined over time. And so you had small businesses that weren't getting it, that probably should have been getting it. You had small businesses that didn't know how to get it. And there was this big run on the accounting profession got put under a lot of pressure. And to not only was this tax season here, they had customers coming to them going, should I get the PPP? How do I get it? Can you do that for me? And then how do I make sure I meet all the requirements around being compliant with it? And really, when you unpick what those things are, that's starting to become a proper advisor. And because should I get the PPP? Well, let's have a look at your cash flow outlook. And if we're going to do that, let's start getting in a regular rhythm with that. I need access to your records if I'm going to be able to help you prepare for this. If you're going to be compliant with it, we're going to have to be doing real-time accounting to make sure that we can send it through. So I actually think, I look at it as, but this has made potentially where CAS, client accounting service, would be in 2025 just became 2020. Although I say that saying's old for me now because it's now 2021 and we've moved forward fast.
Yeah, because it's been a decade, right, of accounting firms saying we can't move to the cloud, we can't use cloud, we can't have our employees work remote. And then in a 4-week period, they all figured out how to do it.
Exactly.
And then on top of that, they're like, we don't have to do advising. And you're like you just said, well, you were doing advising and cash flow planning and when you're helping people with their PPP loans. And it's just interesting that it took a pandemic to get these firms to change. But I also think that these changes won't go back. It's not, you're not going to stop helping your clients, right? So like these might be here to stay.
And even if it goes back for some firms, enough are going to have it stick where it's a big shift. I saw some stat that only a few percentage points of US workers were fully remote before the pandemic. And now the numbers are looking like it might be 20, 25% after. And that's a substantial chunk. And this is knowledge workers, right? So imagine now there's, a fifth or a quarter of professional people are able to work from home. You could have a whole career remote, which you couldn't really have before. You had a trade-off, right? I'm not going to get promoted. I'm going to get stuck in this particular role. I can't be a leader if I'm fully remote. But I think now people could do that.
Yeah, I think we often talk about the challenges of it, but I think there's so many benefits to that. When people need to move to be close to their parents, for instance, as their parents get older, to look after their families or those life-changing decisions, doesn't mean it needs to be hugely impactful, destructive to your career. The other interesting thing I think is kind of fascinating is sort of as the CAS movement, client accounting service, sort of expanded, a lot of the firms found it easier to start with the big clients. I can talk to my big clients about this, and we saw the big firms really moving into this space. I think the pandemic really accelerated CAS services coming down market. Small to medium-sized practices are now going, I can actually build a service offering like this for a mom and pop shop. And if you're on the right platforms and you've got all that your workflow's right, you can give the same level of service, advice, and support to a small business that might not think they can afford it from you. or to a client that you previously could only do on a really big client. I think that's exciting. So we're seeing that come. That one gives me chills because, we always talk about the small business being the backbone of the economy, and it's a huge part of the recovery as we look at the amount of people who've left their jobs and turned their side hustle into their main hustle. So you got all these people running in to start their own small business, and as we all know on this call, it's not as glamorous as it often you think. I can be my own boss, and then you realize there's a lot of work that goes on under the hood and a lot of weekends that you end up spending doing the bookkeeping. And so our big thing is how do we help get, we looked at most small businesses won't get on proper accounting software until the sort of 12-month mark. And one of the big changes we made since we last caught up was we opened up the limits on our early product, the first tier product, so it was unlimited bank transactions could go through it. And that's $11 a month. And so the idea was how do we help get small businesses starting right from day one on accounting software that can grow with them at a price point that's relevant for them. And the other thing is get connected with an advisor from day one as well. Let's not, the markets, the growth is insane. There's technology trends and consumer trends have been accelerated through the pandemic. And so you need a team around you and you need to be on the right stuff from day one. You've got to know your cash flow. And who knows? I mean, we're still not fully out of this thing yet as well. So there's a few bumps that could hit down the road. And so our big thing is do it right from day one.
And speaking of cash flow, that is one of the highlights of Xero Analytics, which is a new, what would you call it? It's a packaging up of some features you've been adding into the product, the business performance dashboard. But now it's this is the release, right? It's out.
Correct. Yeah. So we actually, when the pandemic hit, we rushed out. We wanted to get to market faster with the business snapshot and the business dashboard to really help businesses get that view of where I am today and what's it looking like in the next 30 days to help with those sort of, do I need to go and get financing or do I need help? This is sort of building on that. So we've put the algorithms are starting to look at recurring transactions and start to call out things to you that you should be aware of. And then of course, Xero's always had that view of, we want your accountant interactive, so that we've also made sure we've thought about the advisor in this space because, again, a lot of businesses might not understand what it means. So we've tried to keep it on the small business side, really simple human language that they can understand with actionable insights, but also making sure the advisor can play a part in that discussion as well and help them, so what now what? What should I do? How do I make a change to that? So we're excited to bring that out and launch it.
Yeah, it looks really nice. And so the AI component of this, if I understand correctly, is that it's a short-term cash flow projection.
Correct.
And so if I enter invoices and bills, it's going to show me my cash projected change over time based on those. In addition, it will look at my bank feed and project those expenses that are in the feed that are not bills or invoices.
Correct, yeah.
So then I can accept or reject those suggestions. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. So it'll start giving you suggestions, and you can look at which the system's mistakenly identified that as a recurring transaction, back that out with the whole idea of going, 30, 60, 90 days out. Am I going to be in a good cash flow position or not? And then if I need extra cash flow, which we know is the fuel for small business, how do I start having that financing conversation earlier rather than later? Because again, most people don't, will call the accountant because the bank account balance is getting to the limit. And it's often too late and harder to get when you do that.
And this is available on, is it all the plans now, or is it's certain Xero plans for the analytics?
Yeah, it's in the higher Xero plans, and it's involved, I think it's in our, what we call our established plan, which is the $62 plan there. Our initial view was to put this in as an add-on as we built the functionality out. What we've done is just we want everyone to use it. And for now, we said until January 2022. We'll leave it as free of charge for you to get to know. And then as we build more functionality, we'll look at what we do in the future with it.
Got it. Well, yeah, I could see firms building a simple cash flow forecasting offering into their CAS services using this kind of solution. I mean, I used to do this manually in a spreadsheet for my clients for that. So it's great to see. You mentioned something earlier that really got my ears to perk up, which is the focus on the U.S. market.
I did, yep.
Again, because that Xero, having been somebody who's I became a Xero bookkeeper not too long after Xero hit the U.S. shores, when it was a few dozen employees perhaps, got very excited. And then Xero kind of pushed hard, but then pulled back a bit, it felt like. So you're telling me that...
So are you scorned by this, Blake? Are you a little... you feel like this is a rebound relationship?
Well, you also alluded to it, Ben, which is, coming from New Zealand, Australia, the U.S. market's very different than there. I mean, like one of the big differences is that here people don't engage with an accountant for a year or more after they start a business. Often, it's only after they've got, say, 12 months of transactions and they need to file a tax return that it happens. Whereas in New Zealand, Australia, people get with an accountant much sooner. Is that right?
Correct.
So,
yeah, the Commonwealth markets have seen a lot more, things like GST means the accountants have generally had a more regular interaction and helped them do that filing. So they've been more used to it, which has then given the opportunity to do the advisory work earlier. So I think it's a mixture of two things. Like, we were very early born in the cloud. We sort of saw ourselves created the category, grew through New Zealand. So we're the leader in New Zealand, UK, and Australia. A mixture of two things. So coming into the US, we're pretty open. The complexity of compliance here, and we took a lot of time to get that right. From my perspective, the magic of what we're trying to do, the challenges for small business, the opportunities for the advisors that support them are the same. I definitely think the trends were behind. I think, again, advisory has been slower to adopt at a sort of mass market level in the US. And having said that, I met people like Kenji out here from Acuity. It was one of the first accountants I met when I landed 4 years ago. And I think I've seen way more advanced advisory and technology shops coming out of some of our partners in the US than I've seen in some of our Commonwealth markets. I think at the Commonwealth level, you've seen a lot more mass adoption of doing accounting in the cloud, interacting with the client in the cloud. But I do think we have some of the leading firms in the world here. The challenge we now have is how do we, so we've focused really heavily on, over the last few years, let's get the basics right in the product. We know that great accounting software and automatic bank feed is now an expectation. So how do we make sure we got high quality bank feeds, and we've done a lot of upgrades in that space and getting the big ones like Bank of America, Citi, and Chase coming on board as well. Things like reporting. We've had we're back to sort of quite a regular cadence of release coming out now with specific US reports and things like US date ranges. And so there's more stuff coming in that space. But also it feels like the time's right now, that we are seeing, the type of firms that are reaching out to say, hey, we want to start building a CAS practice. We're seeing that mass market looking firm come down. And, I credit a lot of that to the people that are at this conference today, because, they were the ones that jumped very early. People like yourself, Blake, that, could see the opportunity. And, I've had lots of conversations with people like small businesses just don't work with their accountants in the US like they do in the rest of the world. And my challenge that and say, well, is that the right answer?
Right. Is that our fault?
Yeah.
Or is that just the way it is?
Yeah. I think
can we change it?
I think we, together we can all change that. And I think, the data, you can definitely see. We probably spoke about this at San Diego years ago, and we'd probably need to update the stat, but, survival rates of businesses that are on good cloud accounting software working with an advisor connected regularly was something like 85% over 5 years versus 50% was a stat. So we can see in the data that it works. 90% of our subscribers are attached to an advisor. I think going back to the early part of the conversation, we've got to get the marrying both sides to do much better. And I think the pandemic, while it's been a really tough time, it's actually created examples of that. I think a lot of people have had their eyes open to, actually, I do need help with that sort of stuff. And maybe my accountant is the person. And then a lot of the accountants are going, actually, we can play that role. So I think it is changing. It's going fast now. It's expanding. It's going down market. We're giving services that only big companies could have before, which is super exciting. And so Rod used to use the term we're at the end of the beginning. I do think we're at the end of the beginning in the US. We're still not that far. I think it's like only 20% or around that number of small businesses are using cloud accounting as a GL, which, blows your mind when you consider the Southern Hemisphere is over 50%. So we're right at the start. There's so much innovation too happening all over the workflows when you look at all the cloud apps that small businesses can now access. And you're seeing the consolidation of those apps as well, because there's more on it as we simplify workflows. So I think it's going to be a really as we come out of the pandemic, I think a lot of our partners need a bit of a breather, and I hope they're having a great summer break. But you can feel it in the conference here. We're going to see it next week at Engage. I think now now's the reflection period of going, how do we do that better? How do we not, for those that weren't in a good position going into that pandemic, how do we make sure we're on a better, the conversation becomes about business continuity and being able to support clients in a remote way. And as we talk about other challenges the profession's having, like the talent retention and the hot employment market, all of these things like technology are going to set you up for success for that. So I think it's an exciting time. I mean, accounting's never been so popular.
I have a question. So I remember months ago, you guys started getting very heavily involved in agriculture. And it was even down under, right? And you partnered with somebody. And I kind of loosely joked with Blake. I was like, Xero's going to be a niche app. Like, loosely. And last night, over a beer, you were mentioning like some of the stuff you're doing with farming and agriculture here in the States. And I'd love for you to expand more on that, like what you're doing, what problems you're solving, how they're connected to cloud in general, farming.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that was the awesome opportunity of the cloud, right? We were going from one size fits all desktop software in a box to I can build a technology stack that's got best of breed software doing what they're experts in. So, the Xero software, we're not experts in, building cropping tracking, but there are other people out there. But a lot of that industry specific software, they're not experts in building accounting GLs. And so we can all focus on what we're good at and have these integrated technology stacks. And so, we've been a few years now partnered with a bank called Farm Credit Services of America in the Midwest, and they're advocating for financial literacy in the sector. And so now you're seeing farmers that can have production information coming off the tractor on how much grain you've harvested, and that farming app Figured is pulling from a commodity website which live values the crops you've got on hand, which is then updating the balance sheet in Xero. So you've actually got, if you think about it, the connection from bank through to Xero, through to industry-specific app, through to the hardware on farms, as we sort of see the Internet of Things move. Excites me. I come from a farming background, a farm accounting background, and farmers have had productivity software, production software for years. They get excited because I got 30% more crops off that paddock this year, but that's not linking to profitability. So did that happen because we over-fertilized and actually the profitability is down? So if you're connecting production information with the accounting side and the proper inventory valuation, you're seeing the full picture. And so it's not just agriculture. We're looking at, we are looking at sectors where we've got really strong, Xero's always been an open platform from day one. So, where we have strong players that make sense for an industry vertical, we're getting in behind it. We're seeing great things with real estate, construction, e-commerce. And again, the accountants are critical of that because small businesses need someone that can go, hey, I can help you understand this. I'm now specializing in the sector as an accounting firm, which means I now understand the apps that sit in that sector, and I can build you the right end-to-end technology stack, which, for a lot of farmers, that's a tough thing to put together on their own. So it's a massive opportunity for our partners as well.
Where do you see kind of the next steps for Xero, and especially in this new world where everybody's becoming a GL? The banks want to be a GL. You have like Shopify invested indirectly into an accounting firm. LegalZoom bought a bookkeeping firm, just went public, and they're going to start offering bookkeeping services. You have Netflix is training accountants. They're training people to become production accountants and bookkeepers on movie sets. Like everybody wants in this space. Like, where does Xero fit in going forward?
Yeah, so firstly, it might sound bizarre, but I find it kind of exciting. So we talk about low adoption of cloud GL. So the more and more people that are trying to create the category, essentially, cloud accounting will become super normal. And so, yeah, absolutely right. We've seen banks move into that space. We've seen other technology players. Look, I'd say two things. We're feeling pretty strong and confident about our position because we were, we're born in the cloud from day one. And we do see massive strength in the fact that accountants and bookkeepers are critical to the equation for us. And I think, they are still, we believe in the trend that accountants and bookkeepers are going to become more and more involved with small business. We'll see them transform into more managed service shops. And they'll want to work with platforms that can work with lots of different types of clients. So, yeah, I think we're going to continue to see more and more players play in the GL space. I can tell you from Xero's experience, it's incredibly expensive to build a GL and takes a long time to build it fully out. And we believe in best of breed, right? So we've always kept that sort of open platform approach. Some of the partners you mentioned there, Shopify is a great partner of ours. So, we've always believed we've got partners that often have competing functionality to us, but we believe in that whole, the customer and the partner will build the best technology stack for them, which allows us to stay really specialized on what we're good at. The other thing with accounting software, it's all about scale. So, who's going to be the player that can get enough scale? And we're sort of, seeing that with well over 2.5 million customers around the world. And we've always, if you think about Xero, we provide the tools for an accounting firm in their practice, right from write-up GLs now to the full business edition. And so, being that platform player, but wanting to play with other people. And I think there'll be a lot of innovation. I mean, there's, the more and more people that are attacking this will drive more and more innovation. So we'll just have to make sure we stay ahead of our game.
So elsewhere in the world, Xero is not just a GL, it's a tax filing, like full tax software, and also work papers as well. And I think those are the three big things. Am I missing anything else? It's like a real comprehensive solution for accounting firms. And our U.S. listeners may not be aware of that because for us, we have the GL here in the U.S. So in your expansion efforts in the U.S., are you planning to make Xero into that comprehensive solution here? Or I guess my question is, how are you planning to grow? What is your strategy?
Yes, it's a great question. I think all of those things you just mentioned are workflows we have to solve. How we solve them may be different, would be what I'd say. So, you take a country like Australia, one GST code, and a very simple digital end-of-year tax filing engine is required without the sort of digitization and simplification we've seen in the Commonwealth of the tax systems. So, whether we solve it through, we've talked about the partnership approach, and so we've done partnerships with some of the tax players. We're getting the data out of Xero into the tax so you can finish end of year tax is important. So we're constantly looking at that, how we deepen those partnerships, what parts should we build versus and we've talked to the market recently, and you've seen this year we've done a few acquisitions. So we look at everything from a build by partner perspective. But we have to solve all those workflows. So right now we're really focused on making sure we get the core bookkeeping solution working really well for small business and bookkeepers and accountants that are supporting it around that cash practice side. And then as we scale up, we'll just keep expanding out and solving more and more of those workflows better than we currently are today. The US, if you think about it, it's funny. I said there's sort of all of those prongs of workflows are enormous companies when you think about the US. And so taking a best of breed approach, and it may not be, even though we might have built that in another country, it may not be the right approach for here in the US. We might be better to partner with a smart player that wants to do their piece really well, and we'll do our bit really well. So looking to accelerate in all those avenues.
So if I am a US bookkeeper or accountant and I'm looking to build my bookkeeping or client accounting services practice, why should I partner with Xero as opposed to someone else?
Great question. Firstly, so we like to get along right alongside. So I'd say we're a true partner. We want to make sure you've got the right tools to run your practice. We believe in the connection of you to small business, and so we want to help you grow. If you're a startup firm, it's easy. Let's help you build a technology stack that will evolve as your firm grows. If you're a firm that's looking to make a change, we understand it's really hard, and so we'll get right alongside you. Our people are out in the cities, and the firms that we support, we're in their offices. Well, pre the pandemic we were, and when we can safely, we'll be back there. But helping you go through that change management with your firm and that training, helping you educate your clients as well. So we really get alongside you. The other thing I think is a big differentiator for us is, we realize that most firms have got clients that are on the cloud, ready to go to the cloud, and are going to hang on to a desktop or spreadsheet for a while as well. And so, we're trying to build a platform in a way that you can really take your practice online. We've got tools from practice management. We've done some updates to the work papers, and there'll be more coming soon in that space. So you can use that as a tool here in the US. We want to make sure that the GLs are playing nicely with whatever tax solution you're doing. But also when we look at our core GL, you can have a client that's on desktop or a spreadsheet, but still bring them into our basic cloud GL product. And then when they're ready to upgrade, move. So we want to be the GL platform for your firm, and we realize that some clients may be better fits for other end user products. Some clients will hang on to that spreadsheet until till the day they finish business, and that's fine. And we don't want it to hold you back from getting a consistent platform. It's easy. We were born in the cloud. I mean, it's easy to use. We try to keep it human for the small businesses, and make sure. I always say to accountants that we also want to make you understand how your practice. So, like practice management, for instance. Do you know which clients are profitable? You tell me that you do payroll at a low margin, but it's a really good way of making sure the tax return client doesn't leave. Well, what margin are we getting? And is it actually reducing churn on the tax return clients? So we want to make sure you're actually running your practice with those. Some of our tools will help you get those insights. I'm doing a big client group here, and I give David his Schedule C for free because Blake spends a lot on the podcast books with us. Okay, well, what is the margin I'm now making off that client group? Is it profitable? And it's kind of scary how many firms can't answer those questions. And so we think if you want to be a great advisor, start with doing some advisory practicing on yourself as well. So yeah, true partner. We keep it easy, built in the cloud from day one. And look, we're just at the start, and we've got lots of product that we're going to roll out for the US. And we truly believe in the power of accountants and bookkeepers and what they'll do for small business. So yeah, come on, let's get together and do this.
One last thing that's kind of current news. And it might have been this week, and we haven't done this week's episode yet of the news. So this is like a preview of the news or post view. I think one of the articles I saw, or the headline, Xero is powering Liberty Tax, or there's a relationship there. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So they've chosen us as their preferred cloud accounting software provider for North America, so both here in the US and in Canada. As you know, Liberty Tax is a pretty expansive firm right across both countries. They serve many small businesses, and they are looking to grow and growing rapidly into more bookkeeping services for their clients and wanting to be able to give more advice to their small businesses beyond the great tax services that they provide.
And they're a franchise model, right?
Correct. Okay. Yeah. So they have franchises all over North America. So so we'll be getting alongside them, helping them to start rolling the product out, but also as they look to grow and expand these services to their clients. Really exciting partnership for us. We've had since we spoke with, Car Riggs Ingram has expanded its partnership with us in the CAS space. We saw Keiko come on board with us for agriculture. Adams Brown & Co. Partner with us around agriculture. So there's been some, pretty exciting big name firms that are joining the Xero in rolling Xero out, which is exciting, particularly in the CAS space. I think that's as we talked about, it's growing pretty rapidly. So
Ben, we've taken enough of your time today. I think, when are we going to get to see you again in person?
Well, yeah, I wanted to leak some exciting news, and I was thinking the other day, we really need to get out there and tell people when Xerocon is going to be next. And I was sitting on the plane on the way down here, and I was like, what a better place to sort of leak that news. And at the accounting salon, it is it's a very innovative conference, almost like an unconference. It's more about collaboration and sharing, and it's a very family environment as well with some great people. And so these are the vanguard of our profession. Many of them have been a lot of the people that backed Xero from day one. And so I thought, what a better place on the Cloud Accounting podcast and at Accounting Salon to announce Xerocon. So the big news is we're coming back with Xerocon in May next year, in 2022, and we're going to be here in New Orleans. And so we have got a massive lineup of product that we're working on for the market, and we want to be the biggest Xerocon we've ever had here yet. So we've got a big drive for May 22 in New Orleans. So you heard it here first. I'm looking forward to. We'll be catching up. Well, hopefully we catch up before then. Actually, it's next week at Engage we're catching up. So,
next week. So we'll all be at AICPA Engaged, and then we'll definitely see you in 2022 in New Orleans at Xerocon.
Well, it's May, so usually we try to do the accounting salon in May in New Orleans. So we might have to bump you if you overbooked on us here.
Well, we could find some way to flow it, just turn it into a really good long party. We could flow it into, make it a week-long event.
Well, Ben Richmond, head of Xero here in the USA, thank you so much for joining us, and it's great to see you.
Great to see you too. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it's great to do this face-to-face and over Zoom. It's
exciting. Awesome.